Cheaper flights disappear, justice feels questionable, and the MJ biopic. We gonna get into it. Let's get it! Welcome. First of all, welcome. This is Unsolicited Perspectives. I am your host, Bruce Anthony, here to lead the conversation in important events and topics that are shaping today's society. Join the conversation and follow us wherever you get your audio podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for our video podcast, YouTube exclusive content, and our YouTube membership. Rate, review, like, comment, share. Share with your friends, share with your family, hell, even share with your enemies. On today's episode, we're talking about the end of cheap flights, a real-life situation that challenges how we define justice, and later, Jay pulls up as we talk about the Michael Jackson biopic. But that's enough of the intro. Let's get to the show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, something truly devastating happened this past weekend that a lot of people are not going to realize the real world and larger real life effects that it's going to have on everybody, because a lot of people didn't even use this particular service. But Spirit Airlines is officially done after 34 years. They immediately shut down and canceled flights, leaving people stranded. Around 17,000 workers were impacted, and they had already filed for bankruptcy twice. They didn't get the government bailout like they were hoping for, and they are out of business. Part of the reason why they collapsed was because of fuel costs increase, which was driving costs up. Debt and losses kept piling up, and other airlines copied their model, and I'm going to get more into that, but they lost their competitive advantage. Spirit was the quote-unquote cheap option, and people depended on. It made flying accessible to people who normally couldn't afford it, introduced ultra-low-cost model. Base fare was cheap. Everything else was, an extra cost. People loved to joke about Spirit Airlines. They didn't really say this, but it was the hood of the skies. That's what they wanted to call it. And we've seen all of the videos and clips from social media of the fights that are breaking out at, the lines of Spirit Airlines, the Spirit Airline workers yelling at folks and all this type of stuff. Look, I remember when Spirit first launched, when it became a big thing. I was in college when I started taking it. There was another airline. It was before JetBlue. It had a name in it, Blue. That was before Spirit, but it was like cheap airline flights. And I've taken Spirit more than a few times, especially when I've gone down to Atlanta and I'm just like, hey, look, I don't really care. It's an hour and a half flight. I'm just going to hop on a Spirit. I've actually never had a bad experience on Spirit Airlines. Now, you got to pay for everything, but at least you had that option. It wasn't built in already to the plane ticket. It's like, do I really care about these peanuts or these pretzels or this free drink when I'm flying for an hour and a half? Like, no. If I'm on a longer flight, if I'm flying out to the West Coast, if I'm on a plane for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, yes, I definitely care about those luxuries. But if it's a quick plane ride, hour and a half, maybe even if it's 2 hours long, I'm not tripping on luxury. I'm trying to get the cheapest flight that's going to get me there. And Spirit answered that call. If you are somebody who flies often, you might not understand the privilege that you have. I remember my first flight. I think my first flight was, I was 16, 17 years old, maybe even 18. Growing up, my parents had to work their way up that economic ladder. And there was a lot of times where we would just jump in the car and drive 10 hours instead of catching a flight. And me and my brother are talking about driving down to Atlanta because I actually want to do that road trip. But if it was just by myself, I wouldn't make that drive. I'd hop on a flight. Spirit Airlines and those budget airlines, what they did is they gave people who couldn't afford a plane ticket because they were hundreds of dollars an opportunity to get a cheap ticket and secure your ticket and just pay for the rest of the stuff later on, right? Like if you know that you're on a budget and you got to catch a flight in 3 months, you could buy the ticket now for 34, 35, $36. And then as you get closer to the flight, you can spend the extra money for the baggage and, especially assigned seat and all that stuff. Because you might not have all that money right up front. If you are able to do that, you won't understand Spirit going out of business directly, right? Like it won't affect you in the way of, well, I wasn't flying Spirit anyway, so what difference does it make? But what it did is it competed against the major airlines, and you need these mom and pop type shops to drive down costs and get rid of luxury, right? So that you could just buy the product, because eventually other companies have to lower the cost of their product so people can afford to do it. So that's what Spirit Airline did. It was able to compete with other major airlines like Delta, like Southwest, like American Airlines. And this is what I've also noticed with airlines. Look, I hate to throw a company under the bus. I will never fly American Airlines. Never again. Every time I've ever flown American Airlines, there's always been a delay or a cancellation. One time on my flight to Memphis, they canceled the flight as I arrived at the airport to get on my flight. And I arrived, the flight was originally going to be at noon. No, the flight was at 2, so I got at the airport at noon. They canceled the flight, and I wasn't able to get on another flight until like 10 o'clock at night, which ruined the whole first day of my trip. And it's been repeated. Every time I've taken American Airlines, there's always been a delay. There's always been something that's going on. So even when you pay for these high-end airlines, expensive flights doesn't automatically guarantee a better experience. And so Spirit changed airline pricing, right? And other airlines started copying Spirit's model. They started offering basic economy tickets. They started lowering baggage free fees or allowing you to pay it later. They started doing seat selection fees, or you could just go where you go, right? Like they started implementing all of the stuff that Spirit was doing to be able to compete with this company that grew extremely, extremely fast. So what did that do for everybody? What did that do for all the travelers? It meant that all tickets were going to be cheaper options. That meant that there was unlikely for price increases for flights going where they were going to be competing against Spirit. But it also showed that budget airline model looked unstable, but this company held on for 34 years. Look, Spirit was able to allow people who didn't have enough money to fly in their budget. It created a new model that other airline companies copied, and they squeezed Spirit Airlines out of the market. But Spirit, once again, would not be going out of business, except for this war in Iran that is drawing up fuel costs. And people all over this country are starting to feel it, not just at the gas pump. Farmers are feeling it with diesel fuel. They have no choice. They have to buy diesel fuel to be able to work their tractors and their farmer equipment. They got no choice. Right? This war, this isn't a commentary or a segment about the war, but this war is not only cost American lives, it's costing us in our pocketbooks, and it's cost us a economical airline that was already kind of losing money just for the mere fact that their model was being copied by other airlines, and the fuel costs. They just weren't given a bailout, and 17,000 people were out of job, and millions of people were stranded. I believe it was this past Saturday. So I want to say it was May the 2nd or May the 3rd. I can't remember which day it was, where they just said, all right, well, that's it. We are done. People were left scrambling. I don't know who's to blame for all of this. I do know that we are all going to start to feel the pain of companies like this going out of business. They're saying Frontier might be next because Frontier is looking for a bailout. Frontier is another one of these budget airlines. We need budget airlines. We need them. We need them to keep the big boys in line. If you need to catch a flight from DC to New Orleans, we needed the Spirits and the Frontiers to give a reduced ticket price as compared to Delta, American Airlines, a Southwest, an Alaskan Airlines, and so on and so on. Like, we needed that. Because yes, some people are going to say, well, I'm not going to fly Spirit because I'm too bougie, or I just don't want to fly Spirit because I would rather have a better experience that I haven't really had. Frontier is another airline I will fly if I'm going down to Atlanta. Had nothing but positive experiences with Frontier. But I pretty much stick with Frontier for short flights, Southwest for long flights, or Delta. That's pretty much what I'm rocking with. Spirit is out now, but like I said, we need these airlines to make sure the big boys don't price us out, because you know what? Flying is a luxury, but it's a necessity luxury, kind of like your cell phone. There was a time where a cell phone was an absolute luxury. It was a luxury item. Only people that could really, really afford it could have a cell phone. Nowadays, you have to have a cell phone. It's still a luxury, but it's a necessity. Plane tickets are very much the same way. You're not going to drive, you're not going to drive from DC to California. You can't drive from California to Hawaii. You got to catch a flight. Airlines knowing this and knowing that the budget airlines are going out of business, we're going to lose in the long run as consumers. When people talk about Spirit Airlines, they talk about it like it was a joke, like I did earlier, like it was a punchline of the airline industry. But here's the uncomfortable part people don't want to talk about. Spirit wasn't a joke. What Spirit was access. It was an airline that let people who normally couldn't afford to fly actually get on a plane. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't comfortable, but it was real. It told you up front, this is what you get. And if you want more, you could pay for it. And somehow that honesty became the thing people mocked. Meanwhile, the same people clowning Spirit will turn around and pay triple the price to fly with a major airline just to still deal with delays, cancellations, lost luggage, and bad customer service. The only difference is now you're broke and frustrated. Spirit didn't pretend to be luxury. It gave people options. And here's the irony. The entire airline industry watched Spirit, laughed at Spirit, and then stole Spirit's business model. Basic economy, bag fees, seat selection, everybody copied it. So now Spirit is gone. But the system it created, that's still here. And that should make you ask a bigger question. If the company that made flying affordable couldn't survive, what does that say about who the system is actually built for? All right. This segment is I saw a news report and I was like, I got to talk about this because I think it's important. And I had to calm myself down and not be so emotional and try to first be a journalist and then give my commentary. So that's what I'm going to attempt to try to do, because very rarely do news stories hit me on an emotional level, because maybe I'm callous of living on this earth for 45 years, being a millennial, going through multiple wars, multiple horrific acts, school shootings, people being killed in the street by cops. Maybe I'm callous to certain things. So emotionally, a lot of news stories don't pull at my heartstrings, but this one did. And I've got angry. I got upset. And then I said, yeah, this is apropos. This is what this country is. So what am I talking about? There was a shooting at the Seattle Waterfront. I've been there. One of my ex-girlfriends at some point lived in Seattle. I went out to visit her, took me all around. I like Seattle. Seattle's a nice area. So this happened at the Seattle Waterfront, and the victim was a 68-year-old Black Navy veteran who was in a wheelchair. A couple of these things I have to keep pointing out so that you guys understand my frustration. I will repeat that again. The victim was a 68-year-old Black Navy veteran in a wheelchair. 68 years old, Black man, Navy veteran, wheelchair. And he was shot by Gregory Tim. I'll get into Gregory Tim in a minute, but let me just tell you what happened. The shooter approached the victim, accused him of stolen valor, demanded proof of military service, took a patch from his wheelchair, escalated the situation, shot the victim from about 10 feet away. Here are some important details that need to be presented to you guys just so that I'm not impartial. The victim did have a knife, and he had a BB gun that was in a holster. He also was once again in a wheelchair, a motorized wheelchair, but in a wheelchair. He never advanced towards the shooter, and there was a large amount of distance between the shooter and the victim. When I saw the videotape, 6 to 10 feet, so probably 8 feet, the length of from the ground to a basketball rim. And you may think that that's not really far, but that's 10 feet. 10 feet is not close. And actually, it might have been closer to 10 yards. Yeah, it's closer to 10 yards, not 10 feet. What the hell am I doing? It was closer to 10 yards. It was yardage, not. So he shoots this man that's in a wheelchair, 68 years old, Navy veteran, all because of stolen valor, supposedly. He was convicted of second-degree assault, convicted of third-degree theft, and he was sentenced to 3.5 years. Now, the victim did not die, so I would say it should have been attempted murder. The victim did not die, but that's the story. So why did I get upset? There's a racial component because the shooter was white. I'll get into the stolen valor thing later. But I was upset at the fact that this man, in broad daylight, where kids are around, families are around, and you can look up this video anywhere you want. Just Google search Seattle's Waterfront shooting, and you can see that he's I said feet, I meant to say yards, 10 yards away. And the guy is coming at him with his wheelchair. That wheelchair is moving like 2 miles per hour, maybe 1 mile per hour. Like, it is moving slow. All the guy had to do was walk away. But instead, he shoots the man point blank and claims that he was in fear for his life. I want to just talk about the legal context There is an open carry in the state of Washington, but you cannot use the weapon to intimidate. You cannot escalate confrontation, which is what self-defense requires. You have to have reasonable fear, and there needs to be necessary force. None of those things applied. That's the reason why the DA charged him, but they only gave him 3.5 years. And I can't help but think it has something to do with the racial components of this case. Because, and I'm going to steal a line from Matthew McConaughey from A Time to Kill. What if the guy in the wheelchair, what if he was white and the shooter was black? I want to paint you this clear picture again. The shooter confronts the 68-year-old Navy veteran in the wheelchair. I left out black for a reason. I want you to focus on if he was white. Accuses him of stolen valor and says, show me your credentials. This victim is panhandling, right? He's out there. He's a fixture out there in the Seattle waterfront. I'm not making this up. That's what the report said. He's always out there. Just like if you're in the DC area, there are certain people at certain metros that will, panhandle, or they got little candy setups or something that they could sell. They could try to make money, right? The shooter decided to approach this victim, accuse him of something, say, prove it. Then he ripped off a patch from the victim's person and was walking away with it. If you are a veteran and somebody takes something from you that is so sacred, that is your patch, yeah, you will be like, yo, I'm gonna need that back. I'm gonna need that back. So he pulled a knife and he had a BB gun in the holster, probably to ward off people trying to rob him at Seattle waterfront, because people will try to rob people in wheelchairs. And take advantage of the people who are less fortunate and don't have the ability to defend themselves. So yeah, you're gonna have a BB gun, not a real gun, which has an open carry in Washington State, a BB gun. He got himself a little knife, you know what I'm saying? And he's like, man, give me back my patch. And this man decides to shoot him. I want to, again, say in broad daylight with kids around. And he gets 3.5 years. And you know how much of that he'll actually serve? 18 months, maybe? Maybe? For shooting a man. He could have killed this man. This man survived an attack in the street when he's been off to war. And this shooter gets 3.5 years. You see why I was agitated? But stolen valor is real. There are people out here perpetrating the fraud, saying that they were in the military, did special stuff, and have not. And veterans, I know from personal experience, take that extremely seriously. Because if they've been in the foxhole, you are not going to say that you were in the foxhole when you were not. But that doesn't justify this confrontation. And I just have so many questions, like, why did he question this particular man? Does he check everyone? Or did he see a black man in a wheelchair and assume, nah, he's probably running a grift? Because we see in this climate in this country right now that there are certain white people, not all, certain white people that feel entitled to question others as if they don't belong to this country. They question others as if they're entitled and only they are entitled to this country and all the fruits of the labor that previous generations have blood, sweat, and died for, that they're the only ones that are deserving of it. We see this. I've heard it all my life. I remember a kid saying to me in 1988 in Lynchburg, Virginia. No, 1990 in Lynchburg, Virginia. Why don't you go back to Africa? I proceeded to put him in the pile driver. That's when you put their head between your legs, you lift their feet above their head, you jump up in the air, and you pile drive their head into the ground. Could have killed that kid. So glad that I didn't. But he also called me the N-word, but that was the last time that he ever did anything like that. But this was 1990. This is what I've grown up in. So these type of things happen. It's like you hear the March on Charlotte, like they will not replace us. Replace who? Now, can I say for sure this is what's going on in this man's head? No, I can't. I'm only speculating, recklessly speculating at that. But here's some realities. There's a lot of white people out there policing identity. The current president of the United States policed Barack Obama's American citizenship, right? And this Black disabled veteran was forced to prove his legitimacy. The shooter initiated the contact. He escalated the situation when all he should have done was absolutely walk away. He didn't have to shoot. He wanted to shoot. And my issue was the justice. 3.5 years in a public shooting in broad daylight with what could have been a life-threatening injury. The sentence just really was too light. And my major question for this entire segment is, where's the justice? Because I don't see it in this scenario. And once again, just make that 68-year-old Navy veteran in a wheelchair white. But respecting the military is something that people should all take seriously, and rightfully so. If you served, if you sacrificed, if you put your life on the line, that means something. And yeah, when people fake that, that's offensive. But here's the uncomfortable part people don't want to talk about. Respect doesn't give you authority. It doesn't give you the right to walk up to strangers, interrogate them, demand proof, and it definitely doesn't give you the right to escalate a situation into violence. Because now we got to ask a real question. Why this man? Why did he feel the need to question a Black man in a wheelchair? Does he walk around checking everybody's credentials? Or did he look at this man and decide, based on what he saw, that he didn't look like a veteran? And that's where this stops being about stolen valor and starts being about perception, bias, and power. Because let's be real. You approached him, you escalated it, you took something from him, and then you shoot him from a distance while he's in a motorized wheelchair. That's not fear. That's not survival. That's a decision. And when the system looks at that situation and hands out a sentence that basically amounts to a couple of years for shooting a man in broad daylight, now we're not just talking about one bad decision. We're talking about a system that doesn't value harm equally. So the real question becomes, if that's not justice, then what is? All right, as I promised, here's my sister. I know y'all missed her. Y'all missed her on the Sibling Happy Hour. I mean, y'all got a little after-hour sneak peek, but this is just us recording something because my sister's feeling a little bit better. Yes. And we're going to be talking about the Michael movie. Now, we both saw it.
Yes.
And we both have some opinions about it. So, Jay, I'm just going to let you go and give your opinions on what you think about the movie.
So, okay. So if you're asking me as a Michael Jackson fan, I enjoyed the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Jaafar Jackson, who is Jermaine Jackson's son, completely embodied Michael. First of all, if you listen to any of Jaafar Jackson's like singles before this movie, he already sounds like Michael when he sings. So to be able to like completely embody him, I mean, the way he danced, spoke, sang, mannerisms. He said he had access to Michael's personal notes. Like he just did a fantastic job. Like and shout out to the costume department because they replicated everything. If they didn't pull it like stuff straight from the archives, but like they definitely replicated everything to a T. I think everything was replicated just because Jaafar is not by much, but slightly bigger than Michael. Michael was a very slight man,
Mm-hmm.
very slight.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all the things were replicated, but they looked fantastic. Like it looked fantastic. I do take issue with the wigs. Some of them wigs were trifling. Like especially because like it wasn't like you're really trying to replicate Michael's real hair because he wore wigs. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
just get the person who did Michael's wigs to do the wigs for the movie. That feels like if that person is still around, I don't know. But
I
some of them
feel
wigs
like,
were trifling.
okay, to me,
Hmm.
it's not like they were Tyler Perry wigs.
No, they weren't that bad,
And
but
I didn't
they
even
could
know,
have been better.
yeah, I think that's just you being somebody who wears wigs, just having an eye for that, because I
Hmm.
was like, oh, okay, that wasn't anything that I noticed. But
Yeah.
okay.
Now,
Okay,
so
here come that now.
that's how I feel as a Michael Jackson fan. It was fun. All the performances and everything, the reenactments, it was great. It was fun. As a filmmaker, it wasn't good. So here's so the main issue is if anybody is an older millennial or older, we all saw the Jacksons An American Dream.
Mm-hmm.
We all saw it, right? Like it was a 3-part miniseries. It was on primetime TV. We all saw it. That miniseries stopped at the Motown 25 performance where he
Mm-hmm.
breaks out the moonwalk, right? The movie goes all the way to the Bad concert
Mm.
tour. I think that performance at the end is the Bad
No, no,
concert tour.
it is, but there's the final, spoiler alert, they're really going through the Victory Tour. And the
Right,
Victory Tour is 84. The Bad Tour is until 87.
right,
So there's a whole bunch of stuff in between there that they didn't address, but they just ended it on the Bad Tour
right,
because that was the next thing. He didn't do anything after the Victory Tour until the Bad Tour.
right. Okay, so, but it goes up to that point, right?
Right.
So they try to take the content of a 3-part miniseries and condense it down into like the first 70%, 80% of a 2.5-hour film. So a lot of the pacing issues, like it would lurch in time and then it would slow and then jumps there. The pacing was a little all over the place. A lot of story was left out. It is Michael's. It's the
I
Michael film,
I
so
was
the
just getting ready to
focus
point
was
that out.
Michael,
It's
right? The
it's
focus was
Michael.
Michael.
Yes.
However, in my opinion, the movie could have also easily been called Joe Jackson. I felt like the actual portrayal of Michael, as far as his not Jaafar's acting. Jaafar did the best he could with the script that he was given. But as far as like the character development and portrayal of Michael, it was very one note. He pretty much every time he got on screen said the same dialogue, which was, I just have all these ideas in my head. I just want to be free. I just want to do my own thing. Every scene with Michael was just that repeated over and over. A lot of what moved the story forward, a lot of the drama and the conflict in the story was around Joe. Joe's decisions, Joe's actions, Joe's treatment of his family, in particular Michael, like it could have easily, I think, also just been called Michael versus Joe.
Okay, yeah.
You know? Also, it was produced by his family. In particular,
the estate. I don't know if it was his family.
No, if you look executive produced like Jermaine.
Jermaine had a hand in it, yes.
Yes.
That's the reason why Janet had a little bit of an issue, but that's another story.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So if you're wondering, the only sister featured is LaToya. Reby and Janet are not featured.
But Randy's
in there, but he don't have no speaking parts or nothing. So like,
yeah. But also in the Jackson's American Dream, after they move from Gary, you don't really see Reby again.
Well, remember, Reby got married.
That was when they were still in Gary.
Yeah, and so Reby kind of did her thing. I mean, she, like, when they had, like, the Jacksons, like, variety show and everything, Reby was on it.
I don't remember Reby being on the I got to go back and look at that. I don't remember
that. There's I think it was like maybe the first episode of it, and they're all dancing on stage, and Michael is going through and introducing all of his siblings, and he starts with, "This is my sister Reby."
Well, because like, she's the oldest.
Yes. So like she was there, but yeah. So anyway, I forgot where we went before we went off on the Janet tangent. Oh, it was produced by his family.
Yeah.
In particular, his brothers, the ones that are alive. Rest in peace, Tito. I recently discovered, this is a tangent, Marlon might be my favorite Jackson.
You have really been on Marlon a lot lately. My DMs are filled with videos of Marlon Jackson.
Yeah, but I always thought my favorite Jackson was Tito. Because I love guitar.
Okay.
And Tito really doesn't get the credit he deserves of being a really exceptional guitar player.
Also, he kind of seems like he would fit into our personal family.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like on our dad's side of the family, like he would absolutely fit, but that would kind of make sense because they're from the Midwest. But yeah, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the portrayal of things is going to be skewed because of the family's involvement, right? So it's Michael is always an angel, Joe is horrible, his brothers, now they just kind of clown around and they don't, they don't have any like significant part to play. The feud with Jermaine was reduced to one line.
I don't even remember that one line.
Exactly. It was, somebody said, "What about Jermaine?" I think it might have been Catherine. And then Joe just responded, he made his choice. And that was it. Like other reference.
Not the feud between Michael and Jermaine, because they don't touch on that.
That wasn't referenced at all. Just the fact of Jermaine not being there. It was only given one line of reference. And then, yeah, so like the involvement of his brothers in the Victory Tour shenanigans was more than what. So first of all, they didn't even get really too deep into what was really the issue with the Victory Tour. One, Michael didn't want to do it, right?
Well, they did touch on that.
They touched on that.
They touched on that.
Like, it was very clear. Everybody know Michael did not want to do this damn tour. Like, he didn't want to do it.
But I figured out why. Not to cut you off, we're going to hold that point. Okay.
Mm.
Do you know why?
Why?
Do
There
you
are, I think,
know,
a lot of reasons, but
do you know when Michael's first solo tour was?
where it was?
Do you know what it was?
Oh, his first solo tour?
Uh-huh.
I think it was bad.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Thriller comes out in 82. Off the Wall comes out in 79.
Mhm.
He didn't get to go on his own solo tour until 3 albums in 1987.
Yeah.
So the movie hinted at that, but didn't specifically say that. And so I had to Google, when was Michael's first solo tour? He didn't get a Thriller tour.
Yes.
The Thriller tour turned into the Victory tour.
The Victory
That's the
tour.
reason.
Yes.
That's the real reason why. It was like, look, man, I'm out here doing my own thing. I don't want to do the brothers thing anymore. I love my brothers. But
the Victory album came out like right before the tour started, and they performed 0 songs from the Victory album on the tour. It was mostly Off the Wall and Thriller that they performed on the tour.
Mm-hmm.
So Michael didn't want to do the tour. The truth is, Catherine convinced him to do the tour because he can't say no to his mama, and I get it. But the whole thing with Don King, he came up with this idea of, 1, the tickets were insanely overpriced.
Mm-hmm.
2, there was a lottery that you had to pay like $120 that you had to send in as a check or money order to his mail order thing.
1984.
Yeah.
Which is crazy money.
And that just enters you into a lottery to get minimum 4 tickets. So you couldn't even just go like buy a ticket for yourself. You had to pay $120 to get into the lottery to, if you win, you have to buy then 4 tickets, which are also at an astronomical price.
They eventually changed that because of the backlash, and this little girl wrote Michael this letter.
Michael went out there and said, we're not doing this. And then he also donated all of his income from that tour to charities.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing of it is, what's the press gonna do? They be like, y'all know Jackie out here on this tour charging all these tickets.
You know what Jackie's controversy was on the tour, right?
No.
Jackie, real good friends with Magic Johnson. Remember, this is Showtime Lakers at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He's married. Jackie is married.
Mm-hmm.
But he starts having a little side piece. And he wants that side piece to be the lead choreographer for the tour. Jackie's wife found out about that.
Mm-hmm.
He had to leave the tour for a little while because he messed up his knee.
Quote unquote.
Quote unquote. The side piece was Paula Abdul. Straight up, now tell me.
Do you really want to? First of all, like, the fact also that Jaafar is cousins and half siblings with some of his siblings.
Yeah.
Because
ladies and gentlemen,
Jermaine.
Yeah.
Y'all, and I don't want to say, but Jermaine ain't worth a damn in a lot of ways.
But you got to tell him what he did. Jermaine married his younger brother Randy's ex-wife, and Randy has kids with her, and Jermaine has kids with her, and Jaafar is one of the said products of that kid.
Cousin siblings.
Yeah, cousin siblings.
Yeah.
With
some of his siblings. Yeah. So
we didn't touch on any of that. However, the movie is called Michael. I don't expect it to. It's not the Jacksons' American Dream.
Mm-hmm.
It is Michael.
But a big part of why Michael donated his income to charities was because of the ticket scam. But they're not going to say anything about that ticket scam because all of the brothers profited off of that ticket scam.
Also, it's a minor story. You're a story writer. Like, that's in the overall theme of a Michael Jackson movie. That is a brief moment in a very long career, and not even one of the main controversies. Honestly, during that time.
I honestly think just my opinion, that the movie should have started it off the wall. That's where I think the movie should have started.
You have to go back to the little kid, because we've seen Jackson's American Dream, right? Michael has been a part of our lives from the jump. Since we were born, he was a part of our lives, right? So we know everything about him. And that was part of my anger towards some of the criticism. People are like, we didn't learn anything new. What else new is there to learn?
He's already written an autobiography. There was a 3-part miniseries. Like, there have been so many books. There's nothing new to learn about Michael Jackson.
I wanted to know how he felt. It's in his autobiography. He says that. So people are like, I was waiting for something new. We know everything. However, there is a generation that were born after he died, because he died in 07?
Oh, you got me.
07, 08, 09, somewhere around that time, right? Yeah. There are people who are almost 20 years old that don't know that weren't even living when Michael Jackson.
June 25th, 2009.
Okay, so they're not quite 20 years old, but they're in high school. And he was gone before so they don't know the story of little Michael Jackson. They don't have any concept. The only concept that they have of Michael Jackson is Thriller, and after that point, nothing before. So they have to go back and tell the backstory. And they didn't focus too long on it. I would say it was roughly not even a quarter of the movie where he was a little kid.
Yeah. I also think they didn't... It made it seem like they just got whooped. And that's not what happened. Joe Jackson was extremely physically... If you read Michael's autobiography, the level of physical violence against those children was a lot of times horrific. So, like...
All right. So I got to push back on that a little bit. And this is what I mean by that. Push back on that. I was watching D.L. Hughley had an interview before Tito passed, asking him specifically about the whoopings and stuff. And he was like, look, yeah, my dad raised us and he didn't spare the rod, but it wasn't what it was. It wasn't what it was portrayed to be. And he said, and quite honestly, and I know this as being the oldest, he said, and quite honestly, Jackie, me, and Jermaine got the most of it. By the time Michael, Marlon, and Randy had come around, because there is a
big age gap.
There's an age gap between Jermaine and Michael. There's an age gap between Jermaine and Marlon. So he was like, by the time, because people forget, it's Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, Michael. Michael was the 5th boy. Randy was the 6th boy. So he said by the time his dad got around to the younger ones, I mean, yeah, they got whoopings, but not like Jackie, Tito, and Jermaine did. He was like, yeah, my dad was tired by that point. He was on this 7th, 8th kid. And we know that absolutely happens. And he also said that it was like he maintained discipline, but it wasn't anything it wasn't anything more than what was going on during that time in almost every household.
Okay, so to push back against your pushback.
Okay.
One, we also know that each child in the household gets different parents.
You're right. You're right on that one.
We also know perception is reality. So, meaning what Michael perceived
is his reality.
Is his reality.
Okay, yeah.
So, what to Tito might be like, hey, everybody was getting their ass whooped back then. What's the big deal? To Michael, it was a big deal. And so that it like it's apples and oranges, like the comparison, right? So if we're telling the story of Michael,
you're right,
and in his words, it was horrific and traumatic, then that's the story we got to tell.
And you're right, because they only show Michael being whooped twice, and only Michael being whooped.
Yes.
And the Jackson's American Dream, They actually only show Tito getting whooped. They see they.
Marlon couldn't get the
Oh
dance steps, which is originally
yeah.
they say the reason why Marlon ended up being the best dancer out of all of them.
Well, he whipped him into shape. Forgive me, Lord. He did though.
Right to jail, straight to jail. Yeah. So yeah, I just from a filmmaking perspective, was it good? No, they didn't really. I feel like Michael as a person was much more dynamic than they ended up portraying him as. He came off very one note. He came off as almost like secondary in his own movie. They added people in like his bodyguard Bill, and I understand that Bill was always there, right?
I was looking at pictures because I didn't know
Yeah.
who Bill was, and then I was going through it like just the pictures. And Bill is from the beginning to the end. He there. Matter of fact, he's the only one who's consistently there.
Yeah. So aside from Catherine, right?
Right.
But I felt like the inclusion of Bill didn't really do anything for the story, which might have been the reason it wasn't included in Jackson's American Dream. I don't feel like Bill just be like, I feel like that same role of like somebody being there for Michael to lean on was also kind of captured in his relationship with Catherine. So
but that's a different thing though. Okay. Me, not a filmmaker, just looking at it from my lens. There are things that you can be open with about your mother that you can't. Things you can be open with Bill that you can't with your mother. In other words, even though Catherine loves Michael, she also loves her other children. That's the reason why she convinced him to do the victory tour. So yeah, he can confide in his mother, he could talk to his mother, but when he's really like, I got to do this tour, I really don't want to do it. He can't keep going to his mom and talking about that because she's the one convincing him to do it for the brothers, for the family. So he
they didn't really include that part.
It
really just kind of was like a turn. I'm going to do the tour.
I really need to watch it again. I really need to watch it again because I picked up on little stuff. People are like, they didn't even explain that he didn't like his facial features and they didn't get into his vitiligo. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe that comes later. There is going to be a sequel. The movie is doing well at the box office. Critics panned it, which I pushed back on somebody who said it was kind of racist. And I was like, no, like I kind of understand, like as you're saying it, I kind of understand what you're saying as a filmmaker of how, the story wasn't really flushed out. Like I get it. I can understand it. But then also, because it's Michael, right? And there are other biopics that they didn't really dissect like this. And I was like, all right, there might be a tinge of racism in there, but more because no other biopic can top this one simply because there's no other musical performer ever in the world. Elvis would have been the only one that would have been close, but still not close. That was as big as Michael Jackson.
And I feel like even still, like, there was only a couple of moments where you really get the full weight and impact of how big Michael is. Like that one moment where he's standing on his car and like all the street is filled with people.
Hold on, no, but we're talking about that time period because he didn't get that big until they started putting his music on MTV. And I love that they included that and how important that was because the owner, the CEO of CBS is like, they don't play black music. And he was like, I don't.
Shout out to Mike Myers.
Yeah, he was like, I don't. That was Michael Myers?
That was Michael Myers. Yeah.
Wow, that was pretty good makeup. But that's when Michael started to blow up. The album comes out in 82. He don't really start to blow up until like a year later. And MTV really really helped that because his
Yes.
album was so visual. I was talking to a
Yes.
friend yesterday, and she was like, uh, me and have kept going back. Baby Be Mine is a skipper for me. Like, it's a good song, but there
Mm-hmm.
are other songs I want to get to. And
Mm-hmm.
she said, honestly, if you're not watching the video, Thriller isn't that great of a song. Like, it's a good song, but it's the video that
Yeah.
propels that
Yeah.
song. And so, yeah,
I
I
can
mean,
agree with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
but when they don't show him being that big and they do at the end, it's because that's when he started to become that big. It's that time period of 84, 85, 86, 87 that makes him literally the king of pop. So I
Mm-hmm.
would assume the sequel will be showing just how crazy his life truly, truly was,
Mm-hmm.
because for a while there, like after he was the Jackson 5 and they transitioned to the Jacksons and he's doing Off the Wall
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing Triumph. Nope. I mean, people are still like, yeah, it's Michael Jackson, but people are kind of treating him like kind of like Usher is right now. Like Usher is making a comeback, but there was a brief period there where Usher was huge. And
Mm-hmm.
then it was just, that's Usher. Like you can
Mm-hmm.
lose it for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of where that movie was. And I feel like the sequel will really show the craziness where he does
Yeah.
just leave me alone because the paparazzi
Yes.
is
Yeah.
all in his business. But I
Yeah.
think that was the ascension. But that's, that's just my take on it.
No, I think that's right. I really enjoyed the fact that they gave you a glimpse into just how involved in the music making process Michael was,
Mm-hmm.
and where his ideas came from, and how he just kind of had that cork bore with the red string connecting the dots and
Mm-hmm.
creating these things, and that he had the foresight to be like, okay, listen, music videos via MTV are becoming huge,
Mm-hmm.
like, and necessary. And
Mm-hmm.
so not only do I want to get my videos on MTV, but I want to make them short films. I want to
Mm-hmm.
make them epic. I want to take it up a notch and raise the bar on what a music video is and could be. And that his songs are stories.
Yeah.
So I think that was really great. I think there were new things, or things that we didn't really think about.
Mm-hmm.
And then going back and we're like, man, yeah, Michael really did. Even just like the backstory, they did. This wasn't in the film, but like the backstory of Smooth Criminal, and how the brothers had decided that they wanted to take CPR lessons,
Mm-hmm.
and the CPR doll is called Annie.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're supposed to do when you approach the doll is ask are you okay? And then so like the Annie, are you okay? Everybody was all like, who is Annie and why? It's the CPR doll.
Yeah.
But like just his mind working like that. Was Michael on the spectrum?
Probably.
Baby, I don't know.
Because he couldn't
But
play any instruments, but he's mouthing the instruments just the way he
yes.
wants them to sound. So,
And his unique mind, like his mind, I think was just unique, and that's what makes him unique, and
like,
that's what makes
like,
him one of a kind.
yeah, like that time that Oprah was interviewing him and he wouldn't.
Oh, he can't. He can't. I mean, even Quincy Jones had to tell him from a child, stop moving while you're in the booth. You're moving
No,
too
that
much.
was Barry. That was Barry Gordy.
That was Barry Gordy. But then Quincy said it too. Man, make sure you keep them feet
shout out to
still.
Lorenzo and Tate. The boy
Yes.
that boy gonna find himself in something.
Lorenzo Tate gonna pop up in your film.
Him
Like,
and his brother. All right,
yes.
let's wrap this up. This long dissertation about the Michael film. But basically, what we could say is, don't listen to the critics. The movie, even though the storytelling isn't the greatest, this isn't Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
You will be entertained.
Yes.
This movie is entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to be Ray. It's not going to be Walk the Line. It's not going to, I didn't watch Bohemian Rhapsody, but I heard it was good. It's not going to be
very good. Yeah.
It's not going to be those as far as the storytelling, but as far as entertainment value, whoo, if you're even a little bit of a Michael Jackson fan, even a little kid should be given justice because he was phenomenal as little Michael
Yes.
Jackson.
Yeah.
The movie is very entertaining. Go watch it. I'm going to watch it 2, 3, 4, 5 more times because Jafar did a good thing, and I love Michael, and I'm glad that they were able to create this movie. And I will see the sequel. But I think this movie could potentially make $1 billion because people came out that first
Yeah.
week. They
Yeah.
came out.
I did. I had a jacket that was a kind of like a replica of one of his press tour jackets, a red military jacket. The last thing I'll say about this goes out to the Jackson brothers.
Mm.
Y'all got an ass whooping coming because the fact that none of y'all would play Twister with Michael.
Hold on. They was literally grown.
No. It ain't like he asked for much. And a lot of the reason why y'all got any fame at all is because of little Michael Jackson, and y'all couldn't play one game of Twister with this young man.
That also showed, me and you went back and forth on this on private. I was like, in our private conversation, I was like, yo, this movie showed just how alone he was and why he became, quote unquote, so eccentric,
Yeah.
yeah, with all of the animals. Because he said as a little kid, when his mom was like, why don't you have any friends? He was like, they look at me weird. They treat me different. They treat me like a display, like I'm not even human. That was his life as a little kid. And his brothers was just like, man, we grown. I don't want to play no Twister. I'm about to go out on this date. I'm about to play Twister another way. And that's what they said. And that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But
y'all still gonna catch this ass whooping because y'all could have played Twister with that young man.
What? Which brother was it? Was it Jackie or Jermaine or Randy? One of them.
Marlon had a date. So
it was Marlon. Marlon, they said Marlon was going to play Twister that night. Yeah. And probably did.
It probably did.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Hey, look, you got the sibling happy hour a little bit, I guess. This was a long segment, so I shouldn't hear no complaints. But, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for watching. And until next time, as always, I'll holla. Woo! That was a hell of a show. Thank you for rocking with us here on Unsolicited Perspectives with Bruce Anthony. Now, before you go, don't forget to follow, subscribe, like, comment, and share our podcast wherever you're listening or watching it to it. Pass it along to your friends. If you enjoy it, that means the people that you rock will enjoy it also. So share the wealth, share the knowledge, share the noise. And for all those people that say, well, I don't have a YouTube. If you have a Gmail account, you have a YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can actually watch our video podcast and YouTube exclusive content. But the real party is on our Patreon page, After Hours Uncensored and Talking Straight-ish. After Hours Uncensored is another show with my sister. And once again, the key word there is uncensored. Those are exclusively on our Patreon page. Jump onto our website at unsolicitedperspectives.com for all things us. That's where you can get all of our audio, video, our blogs, and even buy our merch. And if you really feel generous and want to help us out, you can donate on our donations page. Donations go strictly to improving our software and hardware so we can keep giving you guys good content that you can clearly listen to and that you can clearly see. So any donation would be appreciative. Most importantly, I want to say thank you for listening and watching and supporting us. And I'll catch you next time. Audi 5000. Peace.